mention where we fly or where we help. So as Jonathan just read, the Great Commission, we use the aircraft as a tool to help to bring hope, help, and healing, and to help other missionary organizations, because people sometimes get confused of what mission. Our mission is the airplanes, and our mission is to help others, other missionary organizations, other charities, to fly where you cannot fly. So 24 countries around the world. Yeah, is that okay? And yes, we were based in 10 years in Tanzania and Uganda, and then we had the opportunity in 2015 to go to Australia, to far north Queensland, for me to retrain. And that's our vision, to see isolated people change through the love of Christ. And that's our main focus. And just before David's going to show us a little video, I'll just introduce the video. This was a video that it's been out for a few years, and it actually didn't work the last time I was here. And I just wanted to show it to you again, because I reckon it's one of the best ones that MAF have produced in the last probably 4 years. And it actually is real events. It actually happened where a young boy in Papua New Guinea was given a small plane with Philippians 1 verse 4 to 5 on it. You'll see that it's like a timeline video, but I just read from Philippians 1 verses 4 and 5, and this is where Paul was visiting Philippi, and he was talking to the Philippians, who were mostly retired Roman soldiers who had converted to Christianity or were Gentiles. So, and it's all about partnership, and that's what we do at MAF, and that's what I do as well. So I'll just read from verse 3. I thank my God, and every time I remember you, and all my prayers for all of you, I always pray with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. And that's what Paul was really, because they helped him financially and they helped him through prayers. And that's what MAF, that's how we exist. Both the aeroplanes and the likes of myself, we exist by people coming alongside and supporting us and helping us. And yes, to fly airplanes, we have 117 in our fleet. We're talking a lot of zeros, but it's amazing how many people out there, and people club together, or you get very rich Christians who will actually donate. But I'll just show the video now. It's I think it's a good story from Papua New Guinea. Hopefully it'll play. Yes, please. So yeah, I feel that's a very powerful video of the work that we do. And again, it was based on actual events. So I'm sure that couple who sent that little wooden plane many, many years ago to that pilot never thought it would be like this. So, and as I talk to the children, we're serving together to bring hope, help, and healing, or you can say that whichever way you want, help, hope, and whatever, through aviation. And that was in the little video for the children as well. And that's our main emphasis. I'd like to just, I've got a few little stories to share with you this morning about how we impact. So this is from South Sudan, just at the end of October there. You have pilot Matt Marples there. And he's probably just prepping the passengers, and each pilot will say a prayer before they start. And this flight was particularly different. It flew from South Sudan to Uganda. And normally our planes, it depends on what size of caravan, if it's a Cessna Caravan or a Grand Caravan, usually between 9 and 12 passengers. But the pilot was, I just read the story about this yesterday, the pilot was able to report, they usually radio in what their flight plan is and where they're going, and they normally say how many souls are on board, and he was able to say he had 17 souls on board, because most of those were children, and these are children from with mothers. So these are mothers with little babies that had neurological problems. I think the main issue was hydrocephalus, I think it's called. It's a fluid on the brain, that's as much. So in South Sudan, they were unable to get that. Here, it's a fairly normal, treatable thing, and a child can, but if it's not treated, it's a very, very uncomfortable condition, I heard. So MAF were able to facilitate these ladies, and it saved them a 2-day journey into Uganda. And they were able to go to a hospital, it's called CARE, and that was free. They got free medical there. So MAF were able to do that and then fly them home again. So that's the kind of thing that we do. There's a hospital in Uganda where they took them to, and they were able to get this treatment, and then they were able to fly them back. And then they also have, MAF usually have someone on the ground at the border crosses to help with immigration and stuff. So, as I said, we facilitate, we help as best we can in many different areas. And then I said earlier, we now live in far north Queensland in a place called Mariba, which is, I'll just remind you again, most people, it's right up at the tip in Cape York Peninsula. And the reason why it's there is because the base, we do heavy maintenance in those other countries. I talked about 24 countries. Yes, they do maintenance of the aircraft, but we take the aircraft after they've been in service for a few years and a little bit tired, and we bring them to us and we do heavy maintenance, which I'll explain. So Mariba's just, it's west of Cairns, it's up on the tablelands. It's a big farming area, lots of cattle stations and horse stations, lots of fruit, like things like mangoes and lemons and bananas. There's acres and acres of bananas, lychees, and then a little bit further south, it gets a bit greener as well, because it's quite hot there. You've got potatoes and things like that in Mariba. So this is the Mariba team. We have 9 engineers. We're an international team. 9 engineers and 8 support staff. I don't know if you can see myself there, just onto your left, on my left shoulder there is Benjamin, our son. Benjamin works part-time in the hangar. So as I said, we take the aircraft, sometimes we pull them right apart, and this is Jason and John. John's from Indonesia, Jason's Australian, and they're overhauling nose landing gear. So we would do things like this to make sure the aircraft can get a few more years of service. And that's myself and Philemon. Philemon's from Switzerland, and we're just replacing a propeller. For those who are aviation astute, we normally fly single engine aircraft. This is a twin engine aircraft, and this is one of our training aircraft, and I'll touch on that a little bit later as well. And this is Thomas, he's our chief engineer. He's also from Switzerland. And so some of the gas turbine engines, we actually use a borescope, or it's actually an endoscope, and we can inspect the engine, and we take photographs, and then we can keep an eye on the maintenance. It's all preventative maintenance to see how the engine is performing. Go. So, challenges for 2024. It's not all, sometimes I come up here and I paint this nice picture, we fix aircraft and it's all easy. So I know there's many farmers here, there's many people who work in industry, and if you work with any kind of metal, sort of rust and corrosion is not your friend. So we've had a challenge in there this year in the hangar with corrosion, and with aluminium, and once it starts going, you have to rather replace it or do something. So this was an aircraft, I think I mentioned the last time, it was bought brand new by donations in 2018. It was flown to Bangladesh, and due to bureaucracy, it just sat there. It didn't do anything. It's a brand new aircraft, and then COVID hit and things, and so it came to Mariba in early 2021, and then just in January we started working at it this year. And so essentially this is an amphibious aircraft. So an amphibious aircraft, the name suggests, it can do either land or water. So you can see the floats. So essentially it's an aircraft with floats on the bottom of it, so a boat. It's an aircraft and a boat. And because it had been sitting for so long, and it's a lovely new aircraft, we discovered when we started to do all the inspections, because it was now going to Papua New Guinea, it was, we had a lot of corrosion, we had bad. So that's me. And so for about 5 weeks, every day, I sat in the fetal position, grinding and grinding and grinding corrosion. And then we had to fabricate patches to where we took all the metal off. And then because there's a float, obviously we had to seal it. So it was a really messy job riveting all the patches, or we call them doublers, put them all back again. There were 1,600 rivets to rivet, and with all the sealant as well. So yeah, it was noisy and it was messy. And that was the time of year when every day in the hangar, it's January into February. It's usually most days it's in around 33, 34 degrees with about 80% humidity. So it's hard work. And then again, we do heavy maintenance. We try to help out as best we can. We send engineers to Papua New Guinea and to Timor-Leste and also to Arnhem Land in Northern Territory. There was an incident then. We had the aircraft almost finished, and it was about to be talked about going to Papua New Guinea. And then in Papua New Guinea, they had an accident during the rainy season. They came in and the nose gear sunk into soft mud, and then the props hit the ground, and that usually gives a shock wave through the engine. The engine has to be taken out. So we took the engine out of the one we were fixing to go to Papua New Guinea, and we sent the engine off to them to keep them flying, whilst their engine went off to get overhauled, and then we put it in this one. So yeah, there's never a dull moment in the hangar. We're never bored. There's always something to do. And then straight after that, we'd finished Papua New Guinea. More corrosion. This was an aircraft that was brought from Timor-Leste, and we just had to do some normal maintenance to it, and we found there was corrosion in the bulkhead. And just like a car or anything, your bulkhead is one of your strongest parts, so we couldn't take a risk. So that meant the engine out, and all the cables and wiring, loom, it all had to come out. So we do have a painter, but for small jobs like this here, I would do that. And so yeah, we had to deal with that corrosion. So, and then we found the next aircraft that came from Arnhem Land that was due in for a repaint. We found it had corrosion everywhere. Arnhem Land is a very, very hostile environment. One, because of the heat and the humidity, but it's also, Arnhem Land is right where the program is right on the coast, and they fly to a lot of islands, so it's a salt-laden environment. So we found we had to replace a lot of the skins. We had to replace door skins on this aircraft. It's MAF or MFI, and that was it, finished, painted, finally. It took us another 8 weeks that we normally don't pencil in. Normally these jobs take 8 weeks from start to finish. This one was 16 weeks. And that's just finally, we reweigh everything, because you've removed all the paint back to the bare metal, and then you've put the paint back on, and it had got an avionics upgrade as well. So it gets reweighed at the end. And then that's our paint shop. That's James working in the paint shop, and that was a second GA8, Gippsland Airvan it's called, from Arnhem Land, and it had no corrosion, and it went just normal 6-7 weeks we had it finished. And then usually after a paint job, we bring it back in from the paint shop into the main hangar, and then we all sort of descend on the aircraft, and we try to get it all screwed back together again, and all the bits added to it, do all the flight tests, and then it goes straight back to program. And normally when a plane is finished with us and it goes back to program, it's usually that day or the next day it's flying again, because we're quite busy in all the programs. So, and I've already mentioned we do avionics, from small repairs to major avionics upgrades. Avionics is all the instruments and wiring and stuff like that. So we have avionics engineers to do that. And then this one was another project we did this year. This was the twin that we have for training. And it got a major avionics upgrade as well. So it was quite a big project, took weeks and weeks to do that one. And then this is just John, that Indonesian engineer again, working on the piston engine. We have, most of the aircraft have, again, lots of farmers here, you'll want to know, it's 6-cylinder, flat, horizontally opposed engines with about 350 horsepower. Some of the small training aircraft are little 4-cylinder, again, flat 4s. They're about 180, 190 horsepower. It's not a lot of horsepower, but still enough. And then this is Philemon working on the gas turbine engines. They produce about 600 to 700 horsepower. And that's shaft horsepower, so it's not, you don't have to drive any wheels, just at the prop. So just for those guys who might be interested in stuff like that. Another little story, this time is from Liberia. And this is, what do they call it? Serve, can't see that far. Equipped to serve. So these are a group of Americans, and they fly in. They predominantly work in Liberia, and they work with pastors and church leaders to equip them for some teaching. And they were in Liberia this year, and they were very thankful to MAF. There's just some teaching in the classroom, because it saved them 2 days travel by road, which is roads like this. And the story goes that they arrived for the training, but a lot of the pastors didn't, because the pastors had to travel on this, and they found it difficult. And there was apparently there was some lost luggage and lost shoes in the mud. So again, MAF, we come alongside people, we partner, and we can help. So our training school, as I said to you before, it's at the other end of the runway. We do flight training. MAF just realized like 20 years ago, it's very difficult to get pilots, because if you're already flying for someone here commercially, it's very difficult to give all that up and come and work and ask people to give you money. So MAF started about 20 years ago, and they have 2 or 3 different streams of pilot training. They can start at day 1, where you've never flown a plane before, and they take you through 18 months of training to become a commercial pilot. And then you would go to somewhere like Arnhem Land, which is quite sort of routine flying, to get more experience before you go to PNG or Africa. You can come in as already a commercial pilot, and then MAF will train you, really train you to be a bush pilot. You're not flying into fancy airports, you've just been trained as a bush pilot. So they have a simulator. They have a simulator that covers all their piston engines. There is plans afoot, I believe, for 2025 or 2026 to get a simulator that would do the larger, the Caravan. They have one of those in Africa, but that was what they're doing there. So if anybody's interested in being an engineer or a pilot, MAF do have an engineering program now to start apprentices as well. So this is now the family. We're now a family of 6. So from left there to right, we have Julianne and Benjamin, who's 20, and Joshua, who's just behind me there. And I just said the other day to someone that Joshua, for people who remember, is very tall. So in family photographs, he always bends down so that he looks normal. He's 6'5", and myself. And then our daughter-in-law, Nikia, and of course Esther, who's with me this morning. That's the family now. So Joshua and Nikia got married at the end of September last year. And it was a lovely day. We had a great time. And they're going to church and just a little bit further south of us in a place called Atherton, and they have just thrown themselves full all into the church activities. They're announcing up at the front of the church. They were doing a special St. Patrick's Day one this year, and we happened to be there, so they had their Irish shirts on. And they're also youth leaders, so it's just one. They had school in Australia, they work the school year as the calendar year, so now school is coming to the end of the year. So things like the church thing, activities are all wrapping up as well for the year. So they had their Christmas party just there last week. So that's some of the youth. And Joshua's working at a primary school not far again in Atherton, and he have him split between an IT assistant, or he's a bit of a jack of all trades and groundsman and stuff where he actually quite likes. Joshua, I explained before with our situation with residency and things like that, it wasn't possible for Joshua to start university at the time he graduated, so he's been really patient, and he's now got his residency and he's applying for citizenship. And so next year he will still be able to work full-time, and he's going to study part-time to be a teacher, and he starts university hopefully the end of January, start of February he's hoping. He's already been accepted for that. Nakia is, she's doing the same. She's working full-time in a local hospital as a administration, and she's studying to be social worker. Outside of work, Joshua loves to run. This is with another teacher from the school. They're doing an endurance race in March in a local forest. So he's training for that, and he loves his football. But this year he's concentrating mostly on futsal. For those who are my generation, futsal is five-a-side indoor football. It's now called futsal. And you can see Benjamin in that picture as well. And there's beside Joshua kneeling down, that's Michael, who's also a MAF pilot. So this is a team made up of just friends from their church. And then also, I say Benjamin plays for that as well. Benjamin works part-time with MAF. He splits his role between helping out in the parts department. He also does some cleaning. And when we have paint jobs in, he does some stripping. We have to, I think I explained this before, we don't just sand the planes down and repaint them, that would make them too heavy. So you have to strip them right back to the bare aluminium and then start again. And that's also when we can see the corrosion. So it's a messy, not very nice job, but Benjamin helps out with that. And yeah, that was one of the end of last year, he helped do all the taping to put the red lines on the aircraft. And then this year in September, Benjamin and I had the opportunity, it's a Christian company called Stand Firm, where you go away with father's sons or father's daughters. This one was a father's son, and it's a weekend where we get challenged in activities to do, and we did we camped out on the side of a nice lake close to us, and we went canoeing, and then we had different challenges, but then interspersed with those challenges we had time to study the Bible, where we studied about men in the Bible and about how important it is as a father and a son. So that was really good. It was a good time haven't done anything like that with Benjamin for many years, so we had a good bonding time. And then, I think there's one here, yes. There's one here, we did a high ropes course, which was very high, probably about the height of the ceiling, and I got to the top, and then I realized, what am I doing here? I shouldn't be here, because it was a rope ladder, but it was horizontal, it wasn't vertical, and you had to go to the other side, which is probably down at the back of the church. Yes, you had a harness on, but it's in that thing in the mind, and you think, I'm too old for this. But Benjamin was skipping and hopping up and down, and he grabbed my hand, and he took me along to the other side and all the way back again. And then I climbed down, and I gave him a big hug at the end, because I was shaking like a leaf. And he was loving it. So that was good. We had a good time. That was a great weekend. We really, really enjoyed that weekend. And it was also challenging. There was lots of challenges that we were given with our Bible and looking at stuff, and stuff that we'd looked at before, but in detail, coming from a father-son perspective. And Esther just turned 17 there at the beginning of October, and then at the end of October, she passed her driving test. So in Australia, when you pass, you get a P instead of an R. I think a P is better, actually, but it means you pass. So she passed her test. So now she can drive around, so I don't have to take her to football practice anymore in Cairns, so that's quite good, and she enjoys it. She also likes her football. She was also playing with her brother and sister-in-law in a mixed team this year, and they won the trophy at futsal. But Esther also likes her 11 side as well, and she plays down in Cairns, and she's the captain of the ladies team there. And she's also, this year again, she represented so Queensland's divided into 12 regions, and we've been up in Cape York, we're at Peninsula, and she's been to the state championships now for the 3rd year. And just before we came, she came home just a few days before we came here to Northern Ireland. She was on a church camp. She's actually at the front of the middle canoe, if you can pick her out. So it was a camp where, again, near that lake that Benjamin and I were at, and they do different challenges, and it's at end of year 11. Esther's just finished year 11, and in January, end of January, she'll go into year 12. Julianne is continuing to work at Jubilee Christian College in Atherton, just a little bit further south to us. She works in the building in front of you there. It says, if you can see it, it says Distant Education. So the school runs two campuses. You can see white buildings to the left there. That's the day school where they do prep right through to year 12, and then the Distant Education. So Julianne's role changed slightly this year, where she was doing 3 days at Distant Education, and then 1 day actually in the main school, just teaching Standard 5 or Year 5. So she's quite enjoyed that as well. But it keeps her busy. Distant Education, it's a lot of paperwork and Zoom calls and going out to visit students and stuff like that. So she's pretty busy. She's always kept herself fit, and she continues to do so. She likes to run. She runs, here's a tip, maybe Jonathan, you could help. So on a Tuesday morning for our church, a prayer group in the morning time, starts about 6 a.m. in the morning. So Julianne will get up a bit earlier, and she'll run to the prayer meeting and then run home again. Interested? No. It's not far from the manse.
Just would say again, there's a sign at the end of the road that says Minister's Walk.
I thought you were going to say you've asked for an e-bike from Santa Claus, but there you go. Because that's cheating. You can't do that. So yeah, and then this year she's been running for quite a number of years, but she's never really done any racing or anything. So this year, as part of the Cairns Marathon, they do the marathon, and they do a half marathon, and they do a 15k, 10k, 2k, 5k. So she signed up for the 10k, and she did it. So that was good. She earned her stripes in that one, but she did it. She never run 10k before. It's always 4 or 5. So, and then this year she's also had the opportunity. I shared with you last time. Our church sits as we attend a little Baptist church in Mariba, and they are always asked every year to come over to the Arnhem Land, to MAF Arnhem Land program. They have a long weekend where everybody comes in from the outlying stations. All the pilots come in, and they have a conference, and then they would always ask our church to come and take the children and the youth groups. So this is them. They use puppets as part of their ministry, and it's usually, she really loves that, just getting back. And it's also connected with MAF as well, even though she's there as part of the church, but she still feels she's MAF. And then the school, because it's a Christian school, they've really been encouraging their students, especially these are year 12 students, that mission is part of what we do. As Christians, we need to go out into the world, we need to witness. So they did they did 2 mission trips last year, and Julianne was involved in one where they went inland to Queensland to a small town called Emerald, and this little small school there that they went to, and just help with children's clubs and things like that. Next year, they're going right up to a place called Weipa, which is up on the York Peninsula, and I think she's already signed up for that one. She's really keen to do her mission work. Another little story, I'm almost finished. This is a little story just to give you another reason why we bring help, and help, in this case, help. So this is in what we talked about in the first villages. Most of the villages in Papua New Guinea have no roads, they have an airstrip. So in this particular village in Papua New Guinea, the year 8s had just finished their exams. So the exam papers are all parcelled up in those parcels, and then the MAF plane comes in, and you can see the pilot in the background. In this particular flight, this was early November, in this particular flight there was also two medivacs, and also some, they can send, because PNG is a very fertile country, so local produce they can send to the cities, they get more money for it, so MAF will help with that. So these exam papers are all parcelled up, they're given to the pilot, he flies them, someone comes and picks them up, they get marked in Mount Hagen, the capital, and then they get flown back again. So here we're used to clicking the button, submit, and your exam results are there in front of you, or maybe you do send them away and they come back about a week later, whatever. So it's quite a process, but again, another way that we can help. I started off by talking about the float plane, the amphibious plane, P2 Wet. It was quite a challenge. So I'd like to just finish with a little video. So in early August, it flew to Papua New Guinea and is now serving in the Western Province in a place called Lake Murray. And there hasn't been any contact there with missionaries for about 10 years because it's so inaccessible only by boat. So now we can use the amphibious aircraft. It's just 1 minute long. Thanks, David. So yeah, thank you very much for that. Also another little story, when you see the plane coming into the jetties there, it took 8 months because all the timber had to be carried by just through little tracks to the villages so they could make the jetties, because there hadn't been anybody there for more than 10 years. So that plane's now been used after a lot of hard work. And yeah, thank you this morning. Again, if you're welcome to come for tea and coffee after the service. If you have anything you want to ask me, I'll be there, and I'll try and greet everyone that comes. That would be lovely. Thank you very much. You're still here, Jonathan. That's good. That's right, great. Because I was ready. I was ready to.
You were ready?
Yeah, I was ready. Yeah.
So yes, thank you to Glenn for the presentation, and hopefully you're better informed about the work of MAF, what they do, and what Glenn in a very particular way is involved in, and the family. To get that update has been very helpful as well. As Glenn said, please do join with us if you're able to do so, and you can come and chat to Glenn and to Esther, no doubt, also. But let me just close with grace and the benediction.